How's it going, guys? Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Phil Talk Sports Podcast, another PWR wrestling edition of the show today. Going to recap our most recent event, PWR Ascension, that took place on June 28th. A lot of great stuff happened in this one. We crowned a brand new PWR heavyweight champion and former guest of the show, Alejandro Bravo, stuck true to his word, said he'd show up anywhere, and he did, and he left with the gold. And then in our main event, we had a over-the-top rope battle royal to crown our first ever high-voltage champion. And before we talk about the winner of that match, another headline is that I was in it. Yep, I was in a professional wrestling match. For the first time in over 10 years, I got a chance to get back in the ring. And I got to admit, it started out pretty good. Here you can see I'm hitting a TKO on friend of the show, Forrest Nystrom. Later in the match, I hit a spine buster on Kyle Steele, the Dynasty. And things were going great for me until I ran into the man they call Boomer. And here you can see he's clotheslining me to oblivion and never really recovered from that. I was able to hang in there for a little bit longer. I ended up getting eliminated by the guy that won the whole thing, our new high-voltage champion, Kevin Klebold, who we're going to talk to in just a minute here. But as you can see by this footage that I have, he might not even know this, but there was a little bit of interference by a guy by the name of Baron Blackheart. You can see he hits me with this book that he carries around, and I might have got back in the ring, might have not, but that guy should not have stuck his nose in that match. So before we get to our guest, I just want to look down the lens and say, Baron, you will be dealt with. Anyway, it's time to get to our guest. He is a guy that outlasted 15 other men, 16 if you count RJ. He did it for DVD in that match to become the first ever high voltage champion. So without further ado, guys, I want you to meet Kevin Klebold. All right, guys, joining me at this time, he outlasted 15 other wrestlers in an over-the-top rope battle royal. He is our inaugural PWR high voltage champion. Welcome, Kevin Klebold.
How's it going, Phil?
It's going good, man. I think an awesome place to start would be, is that your real voice? Because that's all we've ever heard from you before. What's going on over there?
This? Well,
it's actually all the mask. Little voice changer I put in here.
I feel
That's pretty clever.
I compare you to a kiss from a rose on the grave.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So where'd you get the idea for the mask? Like, what about that mask made you want to make that part of your persona and everything to tie it back into wrestling?
Well, I'm kind of a video game nerd. I modify video game consoles for a living. I have a Shy Guy tattoo, and I've never seen anyone else do it before. It's simple but effective, and just ominous, intimidating for no particular reason. So I just kind of adopted it, and it's worked ever since.
Yeah, people are definitely taken to it. I think at the last PWR show, even saw a few of them in the crowd, so the fans are really taken to them. You ended the last show, PWR Ascension, as the first high-voltage heavyweight champion. We talked a little bit before this. That's your first championship as like a professional. We'll start with, what did that mean to you to win your first title?
It was a pretty big deal. I was surprised they gave me the opportunity in the first place, given my track record. I've had, up to that point, nothing but disqualifications. I just couldn't help myself from choking Shane Evans out. May have choked him right into retirement, if I'm being honest. But I was super grateful for the opportunity. A lot of serious competitors in that match, a lot of tough dudes. Somehow I outlasted them all. Came down to me at Boomer at the end. He almost had me, managed to get the upper hand on him, knock him out, won the title. And honestly, I couldn't believe it at the time. And I'm still kind of riding that crest of the high and beautiful wave.
So a lot of people might not realize that how different a battle royal is than trying to just compete in a regular, even if it's a multi-man match. But how does your strategy change? Somebody that was in that match for a short time, and I'm one of the many people that you eliminated in that match. You had a little help from Baron Blackheart. I'm not even sure you knew what happened there, but that's something I got to get with him about in the future. But how does your style change about, I'm not trying to pin someone. I'm not trying to make him submit. I'm just trying to get him out of the ring. So how is that different for you?
So 100%, it's a lot different than most of the matches you're going to be wrestling where you're looking for a pin or a submission. Normally you're going one-on-one with another guy. You can do your due diligence. You can study the tapes. You can find their strengths, find their weaknesses, and come up with some kind of strategy to get the upper hand on them. Battle Royale, you got 15, 20 other guys to contend with. There's so many different variables, especially since you're not looking for a pin. You're not looking for a submission. Those aren't going to count. You're just trying to toss guys out without getting tossed out yourself. So I think it definitely factors into what you're trying to do.
So as that match kind of came towards the end, I was long gone. A couple other guys had been eliminated. Towards the end of it, we kind of had with the final 8, the Elite 8, if you will, of this match, we had a bit of an alliance form on the sides. We saw that Unnatural Causes was recruiting. They recruited Flying Brian Kaiser earlier in the night. They had Forrest Nitro standing with them. And you were on the side of Kyle Steele. Ethan was there. Kwame was there. Was that kind of heat of the moment, or what kind of made those battle lines be drawn?
Honestly, I can't call it. I'd never met any of those guys beforehand. I've noticed we do have some similarities in style. Same with the Unnatural Causes and their draftees. I think it just kind of formed naturally, and people picked their sides and had a big standoff and ended up a pretty big battle.
Is that the last time we would think to see you standing with guys of that nature, or can we expect more of that in the future?
I'd never say never. If the opportunity is right, I'm game for anything.
So we know where you sit right now, PWR High Voltage Heavyweight Champion. Let's talk about kind of where you came from, because a lot of the guys in PWR are either in Florida, very close to Florida. You visit us all the way from Colorado for these shows, so you probably fly over hundreds of promotions, not an exaggeration, to get over here. So I think it's a reasonable question to ask, why PWR?
Sure. So a lot of people don't know I'm originally from Florida, lived there for 14 years. So 10 years down in Jupiter, which is South Florida, and then 4 years in Orlando, which is pretty close to where PWR currently operates. So I want to say probably half, maybe slightly more than half the roster I've known for upwards of 20 years. We've wrestled against each other, wrestled with each other in a bunch of different promotions all over Florida before I'd moved to Colorado. And then when they said they were getting Pro Wrestling Rebellion starting up last year, I couldn't help but take the opportunity. Just like the guys I love doing the sport I love coming together and making a great production. I would fly 2,000 miles to do it. And it's just such a great group of dudes. The shows are run fantastic. I was blown away. I hadn't wrestled in 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Prior to coming back to PWR. But I came to the show in February just as a spectator, and I got the itch. I couldn't help myself. So I think I have one more run in me.
Well, it's great to see, and it's off to a fantastic start. So, you were 8 years separated. What was that process like, getting back into, ring shape, both physically and mentally? My little stint in that match, it had been 10 years for me. And obviously my appearance in there didn't go quite as well as yours. But what was your process like getting back? You had the 2 matches with Shane Evans that while they, went to disqualification, they went the distance, could have easily won either of those. The first DQ wasn't really your fault. That was more Bravo. And I've had Bravo on this show, and I totally see how that would happen. But what was the process like getting back into, you get the itch. What is step one to I'm trying to get back in there?
I think just general exercise. Cardio is super important. A lot of people don't realize how easy it is to get blown up in there. You're lifting 200, 250 pound guys over your head, running the ropes. So cardio was definitely my first focal point. Just consistency with the gym, trying to eat better, cut out the crap, cut out the sugar. That being said, nothing can really compare with in-ring time, getting time in the ring and rolling around. You can lift, you can run, you can do all the machines you want, but actually getting in there and rolling around in the ring is a completely different animal. So to get prepared was just staying more consistent with the gym. And then I'd show up a few hours early for the shows, get in there, bump around a little bit, hit the ropes, see how everything's feeling. And I definitely still have some rust, taking almost a decade off. But every time I get in there, it feels more and more natural and feels like I'm right back in the hot seat.
In that 8 years away, did you as a fan follow wrestling still anymore? A lot of these guys, even when they're away, maybe not every week, but like are very aware of what's going on in like mainstream wrestling. Were you involved in wrestling as a fan at all in that time away?
Nothing mainstream. I haven't watched any WWE in probably 10 years. I don't think I've watched one AEW show. I know that's a hot take, being a pro wrestler and not actually watching the product. I've watched like big clips, like CM Punk's return,
Right.
John Cena's heel turn. So like big moments, but I can't remember the last time I've actually sat down and watched a show. So it's nothing against them. I just lost interest in the mainstream product, I guess.
The more I interview, more wrestlers on this show, I think that's actually more and more common. Like that people, they know what's going on. They may have some sort of pulse on it, but like, is it not as unusual as maybe a fan would think that somebody in wrestling doesn't necessarily watch all the wrestling?
Yeah, I wouldn't think it's too terribly unusual. Like I still love watching my friends perform, but I'm sure it's pretty common with people growing up, like me and most of the guys were in our mid 30s now. A lot of them have kids. We all have full-time jobs. So being able to find that time to set aside and to dedicate 2 to 3 hours, once, twice, 3 times a week, it's kind of a hard ask. The older you get, the more responsibilities you have, the more you have going on. So I don't think it's terribly uncommon, but yeah.
I always say, back when we were growing up, I'm only a dash younger than a lot of the guys on the roster, but we had Raw, we had SmackDown. That was really it. ECW and WCW had come and gone really for most of our, teenage years or whatever. Now you could almost say there was too much wrestling on TV, and that would have been a good problem to have back when, but now it's just impossible to keep up with everything. Back when you were, whatever the peak, I guess we'll start here. What would you say was your peak fandom? Around what time?
So I was a relatively late bloomer. I guess a lot of the guys started wrestling started watching in the Attitude Era, which I think was the peak of mainstream wrestling in the entire world, as far as just like a casual fan or like you could ask probably anyone on the street in 1999, they're going to know who Stone Cold Steve Austin is or The Rock. So I got in right at the tail end, right after the Attitude Era had ended. In 2002, I distinctly remember the very first Raw I watched was Triple H's return. So it was probably like, I want to say a year before the Ruthless Aggression era.
Right.
And I would say that those initial years were my peak fandom. So I'm going to say like 2002 to probably 2009, honestly, but definitely 2002, 2003, 2004, and 2005 were when I was the biggest fan.
My hot take has always been, obviously, you hit the nail on the head. Attitude Era is the peak popularity of wrestling in the world, but like in the ring, the Ruthless Aggression Era was actually, the peak mainstream. Obviously, there was stuff going on in like TNA and Ring of Honor, all that stuff that you had to really look for to find. But the best wrestling you found on TV, outside of, if you dig for it now, was definitely the Ruthless Aggression Era. So that was a perfect time to get into it. Who were your favorites at the peak of your fandom?
I was always a big Hurricane Mark.
Nice.
I was actually the very first Raw I went to was the one where he beat The Rock. And I marked out heavy.
That is incredible.
Yeah, albeit it was with Stone Cold's interference, but I mean it was still
a win's a win.
Yeah, it's a win over The Rock. I was a big Jeff Hardy fan and the Hardy Boys. I think my first wrestling T-shirt was a "Live for the Moment" Hardy Boys shirt. RVD and Eddie Guerrero. I was a real big fan of the high flying style, just kind of reckless attitude. When I started wrestling initially, I tried to adopt that into my own set. And turns out I'm not nearly as coordinated as those gentlemen. And just most of the flips and the high flying stuff I did looked just sloppy. So I just kind of cut it out altogether, play to your strengths. And then I was a pretty big John Cena mark when he was doing the Doctor of Thugonomics gimmick. I think in middle school I actually wore a chain with a lock on it to school and got in trouble. They made me take it off because they were worried I'd be running on the playground and it'd bop up and bust my nose or something and they'd get sued. So, and then later on in wrestling, I was a big fan of Bray Wyatt. I liked his character work. Untouchable on the mic. Like he's just such a good narrator, such a good storyteller. Shame he ended up passing so young. I think that's about it.
So that floats pretty well into the way I normally ask this to guys is the wrestlers you like may not have been the guys that you adopt style for. And like the example I always give is I'm a huge Jeff Hardy fan too. I never once tried to wrestle like Jeff Hardy because I knew I couldn't do it. Similar to what you said, like the high flying stuff just didn't work for you. So who are the wrestlers that, like, not saying they were your favorites, but you looked at their style, their moves, and you're like, that is more what I'm capable of doing. So was there guys that weren't your favorites that you just took inspiration from?
Yeah, definitely. Less so in WWE, more in some of the indies. So Chris Hero, I really liked his technical style, how creative he was. He could turn a cravat into any variation of move. Super Dragon from PWG. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yep.
But super strong style, real hard hitting. Just added that sense of legitimacy to the sport. Also fantastic look. I don't know how many people have tried to copy that signature mask he has. And then as far as WWE style, probably I don't know if I can say it, but Chris Benoit.
It's okay, you can say it. That's fine.
Yeah, not the most popular dude, but probably the best technical wrestler of all time. And I'm by no means super proficient technical wrestler, but I do try to adopt some of that style into mine, just those crisp holds, those crisp transitions.
I'm glad you said Chris Hero because that's a guy whose name I feel doesn't get said enough when people I think people are like influenced by him and not even realize it half the time, some of the stuff that he was able to do.
100%. I think he's criminally underrated. He went to NXT and they made him Cassius Ohno, but I guess he just didn't keep up with his form, got a little chubby and ended up getting let go. What could have been. I think he was fantastic. When him and Claudio as the Kings of Wrestling, just such a solid tag team.
I actually met him once at one of the meet and greets at NXT. If I can find the picture, I'll throw it in here. But yeah, he was, I remember hearing like it was a thyroid issue with him. So no matter what he did, like he was going to pack on the weight, and that obviously isn't going to work in WWE. So that's probably what happened with that. So this is the closest thing I come to a hot take question. There are wrestlers that people adore that to other people you just don't get. For me, it's always been Brock Lesnar. Never been a Brock Lesnar guy. Forrest Nystrom was in hot water saying his was Jeff Cobb. When Shane Evans was on the show, he's not a Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega guy. So that with that being your preset there, who's a super popular wrestler that you just don't get?
Roman Reigns.
That's fair.
Yeah. I think he's shit. I think he's definitely done way better work as the tribal chief, but I think the reason for that is he didn't need to talk because he had Heyman as the mouthpiece. Same thing with Brock. Like they knew Brock couldn't cut a promo, so they stuck Heyman with him. They're like, hey, you're going to be the big guy. Let Heyman do the talking. They kind of did the same thing with Roman, but I think he's criminally overrated. Actually, to tie back to Chris Hero, that was supposed to be his spot in the Shield, according to CM Punk on the Cole Cabana podcast, and ended up bringing up Roman Reigns. So yeah, I'd say I'd go with Roman Reigns.
You know, one thing I say in like wrestling conversation, I don't think I've said it on camera before. This is a great time to say it. Roman Reigns is the greatest placeholder of all time because they literally just gave him the belt, had him show up every few months. Paul Heyman does the rest of the work. And people talk about what a great job he did with that. And like my caveat is I think anybody would have done a great job with all those in play. You could have done that with Chris Hero. You could have done that with Cesaro, Castagnoli, however you want to say it. You give anybody that many resources, it'd be really hard to fumble that. So, like, did he do well with it? Yeah, but it's not. I don't think it was super hard to do well with that. So I 100% agree with you. And you are the first one to say Roman Reigns. That's a bold choice, and I respect you for it.
Thanks, and I agree. If you strap a rocket to someone, they're gonna go to the moon. If you book them to win up to a point. There is a law of diminishing returns, like you saw with Cena. Like they had Cena win every match for 1,000 years, and people got sick of it. I think it's a little different because Roman is a heel, so it's easier to just keep putting him over, and then he gets the hate for it, but then it ties into being a heel, so he's fine with it.
The one I always looked at was, I don't know if you were watching the product at all at this time or heard about it, but like, people wanted Cesaro. They thought he was the next guy. He had the look that Vince should have wanted and everything, and it never really worked out. And they're like, well, this, that, and the other, that's why it never happened. But then you gave the title to Jinder Mahal. And it's like, if you can give the title to Jinder Mahal, there is no excuse to at least try it with anybody. Like, why not try it with Cesaro if you're going to try it with Jinder Mahal? And Jinder Mahal is a better worker than he probably gets credit for. But when you literally just pull a guy out of the undercard, you've eliminated the excuse of like, oh, we don't have the ability to try it with them. If you can try it with Jinder Mahal, you can probably try it with anybody.
Yeah, 100%. I don't pretend to understand any of the decisions creative make at this point. They're just gonna keep doing whatever they want, whether we like it.
So one of the other things I like to ask everybody, and it's pretty topical now with you winning your first championship, off of looks alone, what are some of the belts in, maybe more mainstream wrestling that you are a fan of just based off the look of them?
Not to plug our own promotion, but those new PWR tag titles look sick.
They really do.
That red leather, like very crisp. But as far as all time, I'm a big fan of the Intercontinental title from the Ruthless Aggression era. I think it had a really sleek look. Real popular choice, the original WCW heavyweight title. I think Brock looked great with that, like the big face gold one. The Smoking Skull belt was cool, even if it was like a gimmick or a one-off. I think of like the gimmick belts, that was the coolest one. I'm not a big fan of. I feel like it started with, or if it didn't start with the Smoking Skull, it was with John Cena's spinner title, and then after that, it felt like every wrestler was trying to like customize the belt. I know Bray Wyatt had like the big stretched out face thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge fan of that because I think it kind of detracts from the title itself, if that makes any sense.
It does. So you're talking about this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Most people love the classic one, and it's a beautiful belt. But this is the one I grew up on. This is the first like replica I ever bought. So it's funny, I had it over on the shelf. I had to grab it. But I will admit, it does surprise me that you weren't into the Bray Wyatt one, because personally, just from the short time that I've known you, that seems right up your alley. So that does surprise me a little that's not really your thing.
It's definitely cool looking. I think it's just the precedent that it sets, because I feel like every wrestler after that is going to want to gimmick up their belt to make it look like this or that.
Right. Like when I don't know if you were watching, this probably would have been right after you kind of got out, but like when Jeff Hardy won the title in TNA, he got like his immortal, Imagination looking belt. And as Jeff Hardy being my favorite wrestler, there is still a short list of guys that have gotten their own like custom belt. So like I'm cool. I'm happy that he's on it, but the belt itself, not a huge fan of it. But it's his art style, so it's what you would expect a Jeff Hardy belt to look like. But it's like I'm glad he's on that list. But in general, didn't love the design.
Yeah. Honorable mention to the Intercontinental title they had with the white leather strap. I thought that looked cool.
That's definitely a favorite for most people. Is there any ones that you flat out don't like?
Yeah, that Divas title with the butterfly.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm. I try not to, but I do.
That wasn't great. Can't think any off the top of my head that I just despise, but I just remember that one being shit.
Do you ever do you have the high voltage belt anywhere near you? Do you take it with you when you go back to Colorado? Or
Yeah, actually, I take it to the grocery store. I take it to Blockbuster. It's better.
Oh, there it is. So do you still have days where you wake up and you're like, I am a champion, aren't I? Has it fully sunk in yet? It's been what, 2-3 weeks? Like, has it sunk in yet?
Yeah, I'm still riding that high. I actually wake up in the belt every morning. This is all I wear to bed. Girlfriend hates it, but she understands it's the champion's duty, to display the title at all times. But yeah, I remember for that first week, I was still in disbelief that I was the champion, that I had actually won this. In fact, right after I won it, it still didn't feel real. You can look at the footage. I'm in the ring, just kind of in disbelief of what had just transpired. And it definitely took a few days to sink in, but now that it has, I'm more than happy. I'm ready to defend it. I'm a willing, able, and fighting champion. I bend the rules here and there. Sure. But, whatever it takes. This is the high voltage title. If it was the low voltage title, I wouldn't go, through any means to defend it or win it. But
makes plenty of sense to me. So I want to be respectful of the champ's time. I don't want to take too much of it, but I do have a lightning round of non-wrestling questions if you're game before we get out of here. Sure. All right. So let's start with what's your favorite and least favorite part about living in Colorado?
Favorite part is the scenery outdoors. I still get I've been here 6 years. I still get enthralled and entranced by the mountains. Just gorgeous natural aesthetics. Least favorite part would be the junkies that seem to be flooding Denver. We had one, or a pair of them decided to empty our dumpster 2 days ago and just throw all the trash everywhere. A month ago, we had a literal dumpster fire on the other side of the complex. I can't pull out of my neighborhood without seeing 3 guys doing the fentanyl fold at the gas station. And it just seems to be getting worse.
I'd love to say if you came back to Florida that you wouldn't see these things. It's maybe not at the same level, but unfortunately that's starting to be everywhere. So that, can't really avoid that necessarily. This one isn't necessarily part of the lightning round, but I did mean to bring it up. When you're not in the ring, when you're not winning titles, when you're not choking people, you like to mod video game consoles. You've made a business out of it. What's like the quick version of how you got started doing that?
Sure. So back in 2019, I just moved to Colorado. I was working at an assisted living center for the elderly with dementia. And I had randomly stumbled across a YouTube video of a guy that modified Nintendo Wii consoles. And I'm like, wow, that is the coolest thing in the world. So I started a little side hustle doing that, as well as just selling buying and reselling retro video games in general. A couple of years went by. I realized I was making more on my days off than my days on. So April Fool's Day 2022, I quit my full-time job and went full-time with this, and have been doing it ever since.
That's incredible. Video games always been a huge part of my life. You showed your video game tattoos earlier. I do have a Sonic the Hedgehog tattoo, so I'm very much in the club with that. What are the ones? I'm always curious because I'm a Dreamcast guy. That's always been my retro of choice. I worked with a coworker of mine. He knew how to do it. He showed me how to mod mine, so I have the SD card with all the games preloaded. Didn't seem overly difficult. I know there's other consoles the level of difficulty go up and down. What is I assume an NES, pretty simple these days. What's the biggest challenge and what's the easiest stuff to mod these days?
I'd say the easiest would probably be the first one I started with, which was the Nintendo Wii. It used to take me upwards of 45 minutes to an hour to mod one. Now I think I can do one in about 12 minutes flat, from vanilla to fully modded. Same with the Sony PSP. I can do one of those in probably 9 minutes. The hardest one, by the way, I only do soft modding. So it's just messing with the software. I don't know how to use a soldering iron. So I know a lot of, so I'll stay away from anything Microsoft because that requires getting in the guts of the console and actually soldering things to metal, which I'm not comfortable with. So I guess the most difficult ones of the ones I do mod would be the Dreamcast, just because that does require going in and swapping out the disk drive for an SD adapter. But even that, it's like, I think 6 or 7 screws to get it done. The time that it takes to do it compared to all the other ones that are just strictly SD card soft mod, I'd say that's probably the most, if not the most difficult, the most time consuming.
So the Dreamcast one, it doesn't require any soldering though? It's just all screws and such? Okay, good to know.
No, the only soldering I've ever done is like Pokemon save batteries for the Game Boy cartridges, but I'm not well versed enough to start doing wires and, connecting things like that.
Is that something you hope to, as your business grows, or you like to stick with what you know and just do that well?
Well, so I started off modding Wii's and only did that for the first few years, and then realized how many other consoles could be modded. So I'm always looking to expand my repertoire. So after that, I learned the PSP, PS2, PS3, 3DS, Wii U, and Dreamcast. So anything that can be modded, I'm looking to mod.
Isn't the 3DS super simple? Like it's just kind of like an SD card with a program type thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's because I have one. And people anytime when I went to buy it, it's like, yeah, we only get these in stock so people can buy them and mod them. Like that's kind of because once the eShop closed, that's what everybody wants to do with it.
Yeah, they have it's called the H Shop actually. So it's just like an emulated eShop where you can download whatever you'd like. If you own the physical copy of the game, of course, is the only legal way to download a ROM.
Right. Like when I did the Dreamcast, I literally went down because I have like a bin of Dreamcast games, and I literally went down the line and found the ROMs of everything that I owned. And instead of having to switch the discs out, it's all on a card. That's the main point for it for sure. With some of these, I mean, it's like you're not really hurting a business that's no longer functioning in that aspect. Like my big beef with Nintendo, like the classic Pokemon games, if you don't want people modding them, make them available on the Switch too. They're not there, so what do you expect people to do? Just never play these classics again? I blame them just as much as I blame anybody, downloading anything for those type of games.
Oh yeah, 100%. Nintendo is bloodthirsty. I get a lot of requests for modding Nintendo Switches, and I will not touch those because they're still selling games in stores. Some guy in Canada was modding Switches, and Nintendo sued him for $25 million. So I don't have that right now.
Right.
I'm not planning on getting on Nintendo's bad side. But I agree. Some of these games you can only get in the secondary market, and retro prices have gotten ridiculous, especially after COVID. Some games have like tripled in value. And I think they're only going to go up because they are a finite commodity that they only produced X amount of. They're never going to make another Super Mario 64.
Right.
And there's less and less of them every year, so they become increasingly more rare. They can only increase in value, but you're hard pressed to pay $300 for a single game. So that's how I justify it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet to like you said, if you're not trying to go get the new Switch game that just came out, like I can totally see where the difference of the line is there. So we chatted about this a while back, and I think it'd be fun to end on this for a definitive answer. What is I'll give mine too, but are your Mount Rushmore video games?
That is a big question.
And while you think about that, let me throw this on top because I always have this conversation with people. When people say like your Mount Rushmore of X, Y, or Z, a lot of people hear that and say, oh, they want my top 4. But to me, the Mount Rushmore is based on like the foundation of, in our case, the country. So it's more or less what are the 4 games that like built your foundation of your gaming taste or the games that you like. That's how whenever somebody says like if you did, I know you're not like huge team sports guy, but it's like your Mount Rushmore of Denver Broncos. You can't name somebody now. You got to name someone that helped build like the foundation of the franchise. Is how
right.
So what's So the 4 that kind of help build your gaming taste.
Donkey Kong Country 2 for the Super Nintendo, Twisted Metal 2 for the PS1, Ogre Battle 64 Person of Lordly Caliber for the N64, and I gotta say, StarCraft for the PC. I was pretty big on StarCraft back in the day.
Nice. That one's out in left field. Some people are going to be happy to hear that one because that's one of those. If you either part of it or you weren't, so that'll be cool for that. I'm going to leave out all sports games for this because that deserves its own. I'll go Pokemon Soul Silver. I was going to say Pokemon Yellow, but you play Soul Silver, you kind of get half a yellow anyway. Star Fox 64.
Classic.
Let's look at. Favorite game of all time, Sonic Adventure 2 for the Dreamcast. Classic. And I got to fit one more. Usually there's a sports game in that fourth role, so let me think. And wrestling, too. You'd have to do like a whole nother Mount Rushmore just for wrestling games. I'll go with, just because me and my wife bond over, I'll go Kingdom Hearts, the original Kingdom Hearts for sure. She's actually playing Kingdom Hearts 3 in the other room as we record this, so.
There you go, a man of culture.
Yeah, of course. So, Champ, I just want to say I appreciate your time. I've gotten to know you over these past couple months. I'd like to consider you a friend at this point. I'm really glad that we're in the same company and get to chat like this. So I look forward to seeing you at the next PWR show.
Awesome. The feeling is mutual. I appreciate you having me on in an official capacity. Sorry about last time. I've always subscribed to the philosophy of asking forgiveness over permission. So I couldn't help but just chime in on your last podcast.
I'll be honest, I really should have brought that up at the beginning, but I was more impressed than anything. So I was definitely not upset. I was more impressed. But I'm glad we can't call this your podcast debut, but it is your first planned appearance. So, I appreciate having you. So I want to thank everyone for checking it out. Be sure to follow PWR on all social media. We got a lot of good things coming up in the next few months. And also, do you want to drop the info for your modding business so people can get with you about some orders?
Yeah, sure thing. It's Chomsky Honks Retro Shop. You can find me at Chomsky Mods on Instagram. Oh,
there you go. Yep.
I guess it's probably backwards, but it's a pretty unique name, so not terribly hard to find. You're also welcome to just reach out to me on Facebook for all of your console modification needs.
Well, there it is, guys. Thank you all for listening, and be sure to tune in later in the next week. We will be reviewing Happy Gilmore 2 when that releases on Friday. So that's the next episode. I want to thank Kevin again for being here. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.